Okay, so recently I tried to host my website on Google, and it took me a really long time to figure out how to do it. Like, it took me probably a whole day or two, and I figure I'll make this video to help you save all that time that all that effort that I had to go through to set up my website. So let's get right into it. Okay, so in this video, I'm going to show you how you can host your WordPress website on Google Cloud for free. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, Google Cloud offers, in my opinion, the highest performance of any of the hosting services that are currently out in the market. It has amazing speed. It is always available, meaning no matter where in the world you are logging into the website from, the website is always going to be online. I mean, just think about Google. That you can access Google from anywhere. Google always works, and it's also a very scalable option, meaning you can start with a very small hosting package, and as your users grow and as your website grows, then you can scale that up pretty much indefinitely. So those are the two main options in terms of performance. And another reason why I really like the Google Cloud option is because of the cost. At the moment, they're giving you basically a $300 free credit that you can use to host your website on. So you basically can get Google Cloud for free. You get amazing performance for free. And these $300 go a very long way if you're just setting up a small server, meaning for like a smaller website. Anything under, I don't know, 100 or 200,000 visitors per month is considered a small website, and $300 would go a long way. You can have your website for months for free, basically. Okay, so let's just jump right into it. I'm going to show you how you can set up the Google Cloud hosting for your WordPress. Alright, so the first thing is go on google.com and type in Google Cloud, hit enter, and just click on the first option here. If this is your first time going on Google Cloud, then you will be prompted with their offer where you can get the $300 credit for free. And I've already been on their site a few times and I've already got the credit. So I'm going to jump right in to the console, which is like the where you're gonna use the software. I'm just gonna jump right into the console. But for you, if you're getting the credit, just follow the instructions on screen until you get to a page that looks like this. And now the first step that we need to do here is create a new project. So I'm gonna, next to the Google Cloud Platform up here, I'm gonna click on this tab here and I'm gonna click on new project. I'm just gonna give it a name. I don't know, my very awesome website. That should do. And hit create. Now it's gonna take a minute. I'm just going to go ahead also and just reload the page. And there we are. Maybe. Let's see. My very awesome website. I have a few projects already, but yeah. So here we are. You should land on a page that looks like this. From here, we're going to click on Marketplace. And we're going to type in openlitespeed. And you see the second option here, it says openlitespeed process. Now, the benefit of installing WordPress via the marketplace as opposed to doing it fully manual is that it is very easy to install it this way. You get all the benefits of using Google Cloud without having to get too much into the back end, without having to know a lot of programming and coding. Very simple. You just click a few buttons and you can install WordPress. So here in this page, we're just going to go ahead and click launch. And it's going to ask me to enable these APIs. I'm just going to click enable. And that's going to take a minute or two. Okay, so here it's already loaded. Now it's presenting us with the settings that we want to use for our deployment. Deployment name I'm just going to leave as it is, and now it's asking me for a zone. I'm going to choose a zone that is near to where I suppose most of my users are coming from. So if I think that most of my users are coming, let's say from New York or New Jersey, so I'm going to choose a server that is near that area. I'm not going to choose a server, let's say in Japan, where I know, number one, it's very far away from where the users are, which means that the performance of the website will be slower. So I'm going to go ahead here and just click on North America Northeast. That should do. And the machine type, we just want to make sure it's an N1 and F1 micro. That is the cheapest option that Google offers, and that is more than plenty for a website that is, you know, smaller in size. And by smaller in size, I mean anything under, I don't know, 500,000 visitors a month. So that should do. And we notice here that the memory only has about half a gigabyte of memory. I'm going to show you a way further down in this video of how you can increase the memory here without having to pay anything additional to Google. So we're just going to continue scrolling down here, click on accept the terms, and hit deploy. Now it's going to take a minute or two to install the WordPress hosting on your Google Cloud here, but that's it basically. I mean, as I said, this is a very easy option to install WordPress on Google Cloud. You see here it's all loading up, and once this is done, we're essentially done with the basics of the installation. So we didn't have to go and code up everything in the back end and then do a whole day of coding just so we can install our WordPress here. Thanks to the marketplace and thanks to OpenLitespeed, the OpenLitespeed plugin, the OpenLitespeed deployment, it's very simple to do. So once this is done here, we see that our site address there's an address here, and we see that we have admin URL. We're basically done here installing it. The website has been installed, and if we click on our site address, it will take us to a page. Now I do have some kind of firewall here, so it's not going to let me go into the site here because it says that the connection is not private. So we basically have to install a SSL certificate at this point to make sure the connection will be private for everybody, meaning encryption. And I'm also noticing here that the address here, it's just a bunch of numbers, and what these numbers are is just the IP address of the web server. So we want to replace basically these numbers with our domain name. So instead of people typing a bunch of numbers to go into my site, they want to type my domain, which would be www, whatever my domain is, .com, right? So to do that, we actually have to, number one, buy a domain. And we can buy a domain on many different places. I usually just go to GoDaddy. And over here you can search for a domain, and you can just go ahead and get it and pay for it. And then once you do that, you can go here on My Products, and you'll find the domain that you just got, and there should be somewhere where you can access the domain settings. In this case, it's these three dots here. Now, the interface here of how all of this looks might vary slightly between different domain registrars. So if you're buying your domain from domain.com or from GoDaddy or from Namecheap, all these, when you're actually going to go in and change the settings for these domains, they might look a little different, but the principle is the same. You want to go, whether you're in Namecheap or in GoDaddy or wherever it is, you just want to go find the settings for the domain that you just got. Usually it's called DNS. You want to find the DNS settings, and you will present it with all this. All this looks very overwhelming, but you only have two options here, really. You have something called DNS records, and you have name servers. Now, I'm going to explain a little bit of what these are. Okay, so here we have a slide diagram of what a website basically looks like online. So you have your domain name, which you just bought over here, up here on the left, and that domain somehow is linked to the IP address that we saw of your server on Google Cloud, and obviously that is where your WordPress website lives. Now, if you can do it like this, and there's nothing wrong of setting your website up like this. Basically, all you would do is you would have to change the DNS settings on your domain registrar, which means right here you have name servers and DNS on the top here, DNS records. You don't have to change these DNS records right here. At part, you would want to change that to whatever your IP address is. So I would just go here and copy that and put it over here, value your IP address, and you will hit save. And then you would also make a second one type A with the name of www, and you would put your IP address and you would add that record as well, and then you will be all set and all set to go. Basically, your domain would be connected to your server, and that would be it. People would type in your domain and they would be directed to your server where your WordPress website lives. Now, as I said, it's a good option. It's a fairly simple way to set up your site, and there's nothing wrong with setting up like this. However, I'm going to be setting it up with something called a CDN. So let's jump back in. I'll show you what that is. What a CDN does is it is an intermediate step between your domain name and your server. And what it does is it makes a copy of the most used files from your server. It makes a copy at the CDN cache level, and whenever somebody looks up your domain, they're going to be pulling all the information or most of the information from your CDN as opposed to using your server. Now, do you see why that would be useful? If somebody is pulling the information from the cache, what that does is it's alleviating the stress on your server, which means your server will be able to perform faster, and it also means that you'll keep your server cost down. Now, this CDN cache is actually free, so you can just go on Cloudflare and sign up for it, and it's free to use, it's free to set up, and it's going to save you a lot of money on your hosting. So that's what I'm going to do now. Just Google Cloudflare, here it is, and click on sign up or login. In my case it's login, but for you, just click on sign up and follow the instructions over there. And we're going to find the option here of add a site. And I'm just going to make sure that my domain is correct. So I'm just going to copy it from over here from the GoDaddy so that there's no spelling mistakes. Yeah. And you click on add site. Now it's going to load up for a minute here. It's presenting me with a few options. I can choose the option that's free down here at the bottom and hit continue. Great. Free sounds great. Now it's going to do a little bit of loading. Okay, so now it's finished loading. So what's happening here is that because we're going to be using the Cloudflare caching, now at the domain name level, we're going to have to edit our name server settings, and our DNS settings are going to be handled by Cloudflare. So to do that, we're going to go back here to GoDaddy, and instead of editing the DNS records here, we're just going to edit the name servers and point them over to, click Advanced. We're going to point these over to Cloudflare. Hit continue here. This looks good. Yeah. So here, go into your GoDaddy account and remove the following name servers. Add Cloudflare's name servers. So we're just going to copy the first one here and paste it on name server 1. Copy and paste the second one. Hit save. Yes, I consent. Continue. Now if I reload this page, I'll notice that my DNS records are gone, and it says we can't display your DNS information because your name servers aren't managed by us. So now the DNS information is being handled by Cloudflare. So we can close out of GoDaddy here, and we can hit here done, check name servers, configuration recommendations, just to take a look at it. Always use HTTPS, apply recommendation, enable auto minify, apply recommendation. This just makes the website run faster and more secure. And to exit, go to the overview page, and we should be done here. We already copied our name servers, And now Cloudflare is doing the rest, so we can close out of here. And I'm going to close temporarily out of here as well. And as we can see here, we managed to connect our domain name via the name server settings to Cloudflare. And from Cloudflare via the DNS settings, now we need to link them to our AP address. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to go back to Cloudflare. Click on the domain. On the left here, choose DNS. And I'm gonna go back over here to my site, and I'm gonna copy again my IP address. Okay. And we're gonna edit over here the content of this IP address, like so. Hit save. And I'm gonna add another record called www. The same IP address. Save. Sorry, we have to delete this one first. Save. And we're good to go. Now we see that our DNS is pointing whenever somebody types in www.mydomain.com, they're going to go to this IP address. And whenever somebody types the domain, just the domain.com, the same IP address. So now we should be done here. And if we go back here, we've managed to connect again our domain name to Cloudflare, and from Cloudflare it's linked to the IP address. So now all we have to do is to finish our WordPress installation. So in order to do that, we're going to go into our Google Cloud Platform here, and we're going to click on the search, and we're going to type in IP, external IP addresses right here. Click on that, and click on reserve here. So this is the IP address for the site. We're just going to click on reserve, and that'll basically just make that permanent. We don't want that address to change on us because we already set it by Cloudflare. So now it's permanent. You see it says static, and we are finished setting up everything having to do with DNS at this point. Now we're going to go back to, we're just going to type in VM instances. We're going to go back to our deployment here, and we see open lightspeed here. Now we have to connect using SSH. So we're just going to click on that. Now I do have a pop-up window blocker here which doesn't let me open it, so I have to do a little bit of a workaround. Just click there and try again, and now it's loading. Okay, so at this point we're gonna finish setting up the WordPress installation now that everything having to do with our domain name and our DNS is finished. Now this might look a little bit overwhelming to some of you, especially if you've never used the terminal on your computer, or if you've only seen the terminal on your computer when something bad happens, such as when there's a virus or when there's something crashes. But rest assured, this is actually a very simple way of setting up your site. So we're just going to follow the on-screen instructions here. It's asking me for the domain. Is the domain correct? Y for yes. Hit enter. Do you wish to issue a Let's Encrypt certificate for this domain? We already spoke about this before. Yes, we do. Type in Y for yes and hit enter. This basically ensures that the website is encrypted and secure. Type in your email. Is this correct? Y for yes. Hit enter. Now it's giving me an error here, so I'm just going to read a little bit through it. I see here that it has to do with the domain, and the DNS. So it says here DNS, AAA records, da, 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 da. Fine. So what this basically is saying to me is that whatever we did over on the DNS settings by GoDaddy and also by Cloudflare usually can take up to 24 hours to take effect. So what this is telling me here is that this hasn't taken effect yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait an hour or two here, just let it update at the DNS level, and I'm not going to touch this again. I'm just going to leave it as it is for 2 hours, and I'm going to come back to it and retry again. Okay, so here we're trying again. It's a few minutes later. I'm going to try again. Again, put in the domain. Okay. Yes is correct. Do you wish to issue a certificate? Yes. And now it's saying that everything has been installed successfully. Do you want to force HTTPS rewrite for this domain? Meaning, do I want to ensure that everyone that logs into my website has a secure connection? Y for yes. Hit enter. And now it's asking me if I want to update the system now. I'm going to hit Y for yes. Now it's going to take a few minutes here to load. Okay, so the server update is done, and whenever you see a terminal window that just returns this text over here, it means that everything went by okay. So we're just going to close out of that. Alright, so one last thing I want to do is to give ourselves that additional gig of free memory. So we're going to go back here on the terminal. We're just going to copy paste these commands. Let's just copy paste one by one. Okay. And don't worry, I'll put these on the description below here so you can also copy paste them, and you'll see here that we have our regular memory 565 megabytes, and we also have a swap of 1024. So total we have a little bit over 1.5 gigs. So that's great, and we're only paying for half a gig, so that sounds great to me. Alright, so we're ready to close out of here, and now let's see if our website is live. And now I'm just going to go ahead onto the domain. Alright, so after typing that information, it takes us to our login page here. So just type in again the details that we just made. And we see that we're in. So this worked just like, you see, just like any other WordPress installation would. So there you have it, everybody. That's how you host a WordPress site on Google. It's going to be super fast. It's going to be super cheap. If you have any questions, make sure to put them in the comments below, and we will see you in the next video.